Hello and welcome to this Marine Shift 360 training video on defining your project goal and scope. In this video, we will go through how to define your project's goal and scope, how to map your processes and system boundaries, and what to include within your report. Before you get started with creating your assessments, it's important that you have a clear goal and plan for your project so that you understand what components you need to include to give a comprehensive assessment of your product's impact. A good place to start is by opening your project and heading to the reporting tool. Once you enter the reporting tool, you can view the contents list on the right-hand side. Here there are two sections that will help you with your initial assessment plan: Goal of Study and Scope of Study. Once you click Goal of Study, you'll go to this section of the report. In this section, you'll need to define the purpose of your study. And you can see that within the template there is a content hint at the top in black and also some example text in blue that can help you to define your goal. Defining a goal is important as it will direct the focus of your study. Some examples of goals include to compare the environmental impact of multiple products, to assess the carbon footprint of a product, to identify impact hotspots within a supply chain, to evaluate potential changes to a product design, or to meet regulatory compliance or certification standards. Each of these goals will have different LCA focus, which will in turn affect your data collection, your system boundaries, and how you interpret your results. Once you've defined your goal, scroll down to the next section, Scope of Study. In this section, you will need to define your project scope, boundaries, and functional unit. Your scope defines what is included within your study, such as the system boundaries, processes, lifecycle stages, and impact categories. Some examples of scope types include a cradle-to-grave analysis. This means you're including all lifecycle stages from raw material extraction all the way through to product disposal at the end of its life. You have a cradle-to-gate analysis. This includes the stages from raw material extraction to when the product leaves the factory gate. So there's no use or end-of-life stages included. And finally, a gate-to-gate analysis. This focuses on everything that occurs within a specific production process and excludes any processes or transportation that occur upstream or downstream. Once you've decided on your scope, you'll need to dive a little deeper into what's being included and excluded by defining your system boundaries. For example, in a cradle-to-grave lifecycle assessment of a boat, you might want to include the raw material extraction, manufacturing, transportation, use and disposal, but you might want to exclude activities that are unrelated to production, such as office activities or employee travel. Your system boundaries define the line between what is included and excluded from your study. Creating a process map is key to defining your scope and boundaries by visually outlining all the steps and interactions that occur within your product lifecycle. You can begin by drawing a flowchart that shows each stage of your process in order. For example, your process may go plug and mold production, composite production, sale production, transportation to an assembly facility, delivery to customer, use, end of life. From here, you can add in elements showing when raw materials and auxiliary materials are used, where they travel from, and what utilities are used at each stage: electricity, gas, water, and where is the waste material output during this process. You can use this map to identify which assessments you'll need to create and ensure that you've covered everything within your LCA. For an ISO compliant report, you should also include this within your final report. Finally, as well as defining your scope and boundaries, you may want to include a functional unit within your project. A functional unit in an LCA is a way to measure and describe what a project does so that its environmental impact can be compared fairly. It defines the product's purpose in a measurable way that matches the goals of the study. For example, for a 10-metre rigid inflatable boat, the functional unit could be the cradle-to-grave impact of using the boat for 50 hours per year at 20 knots cruising speed over a 15-year lifespan. This will allow you to compare this report with other boats and other vessels in a fair way. Once you've set out your plan, it's time to get started with creating your first assessments. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching.